My mother promised me her business would be mine someday. I skipped college to help her build it. After 12 years, I walked into a meeting and found my younger brother sitting at my desk. "Mom thought it was best," he said, not looking at me. "You're more support staff." My mother just nodded and said, "Don't make this difficult." I packed my things, but I left one flash drive in the drawer. What was on it would make the next board meeting very different. I, 29M, have worked for my mother's company since I was 17. Logistics business. Nothing glamorous, just trucks, freight routes, deliveries. But I loved it because I built it with her. I didn't go to college. I had a full ride to Michigan, but when I sat down with my mom that summer, she told me the business was going to be mine one day. She said it like a fact. "If you stay, I'll show you everything. It'll be yours." That was the moment. I remember the way she said it. Not dramatic, just calm. Like she was offering me a future with her in it. So I stayed. I did everything. Answered phones. Picked up freight quotes. Built client lists. Filed taxes. Learned QuickBooks. Slept under my desk some nights. When the company grew, I was the one setting up the back-end systems. When we landed our first major warehouse client, I was the one who made the pitch deck. My mom still acted like she was the face, but she leaned on me more and more. She'd have wine with clients and call me at midnight to fix the paperwork they'd just signed. Chris, my younger brother, never showed interest. He was always the golden kid, though. Varsity everything. Got into NYU. Never worked a shift at the business. When he did visit the office, it was for 10 minutes, long enough to charm the admin staff and leave. Still, I thought it was understood. This was mine. Everyone at the company said it. Even the board members, some of whom I brought in, told me I was the future. I found out I wasn't, in the worst way. 2 Mondays ago, I came in early for the quarterly strategy meeting. I always prep slides. I always review numbers. I walked into the building at 6:30 a.m., had my usual coffee, nodded at reception, went to my office, and saw someone else's nameplate on the door. It was cheap plastic, still warm from being installed. I opened the door, and there was Chris, sitting at my desk, feet under it like he belonged there. Wearing a suit I didn't recognize, dark gray, tailored. There was a half-empty latte next to him. My chair was adjusted to his height. He looked up at me like he was surprised to see me. "Hey," he said. That was it. Just hey. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. Then he added, "Mom thought it was best." Best for what? He didn't look me in the eye. "You're more support staff now. Ops. Day-to-day." That's when I noticed she was in the room too. My mom. Standing near the window, arms crossed. Not saying anything. Watching it happen. She finally said, "Don't make this difficult." 12 years. Not a thank you. Not a conversation. Just that. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I walked out and started packing. Took my laptop, my notebooks, a few personal things. But I left something behind on purpose. There was a flash drive in my bottom drawer, labeled Ren Data, after one of our earliest clients. It looked like nothing. Just another backup USB. But it wasn't. I'd been saving things on it for years. Just in case. I never thought I'd use it. But I also never expected her to hand everything over to Chris like that. On the drive were screenshots of emails from my mom to a shady vendor she used to pay under the table. Guy's name was left off the books. Never showed up on 1099s. Audio recordings of calls where she directed our accountant to massage the quarterly numbers to avoid questions from the board. A PDF of a wire transfer she made from the company to her personal account. $42,000 labeled as a client refund. There was no such refund. A Dropbox link to NDAs she made junior staff sign after 2 harassment complaints about a client she refused to drop. That client brought in money. I'd seen everything. I wasn't proud of sitting on it, but I did. Because I thought she trusted me. Because I thought it would all be mine one day. I thought I was protecting the company for myself. Now I realize I was just protecting her. The next board meeting was 2 weeks away. Chris was listed on the agenda as president. I called a board member I trusted, Mark. The only one who'd ever pulled me aside and said, "You're the real reason this place runs." I asked if I could speak during the meeting. He said yes. He had no idea what I was going to say. Board meeting day came. It was held in the main conference room, the one with the long glass table my mom was so proud of. Chris stood near the front, flipping through a slideshow on a clicker like he was doing some kind of TED Talk. He wore a new watch. Rolex. His third week in the building. He was introducing a new vision for the company. Talking about branding, expansion, a restructured leadership team. I noticed he didn't say my name once. He listed off roles for his executive team. All new titles. All people he'd brought in from God knows where. One of them used to be his frat buddy at NYU. Another was a girl he dated last year. My mom sat beside him, smiling. They had printed booklets. I waited until the Q&A section, then raised my hand. Mark gave me a nod. I stood. I kept my voice steady. I have some documentation I think the board should see before we approve any of this. The room went quiet. My mom's smile froze. Chris tried to cut in. If this is personal, maybe we can… No, I said. It's not personal. It's about company funds. Fraud. And violations that could get this entire operation audited. I slid the flash drive across the table. Mark picked it up and plugged it into his laptop. I'd organized everything by date, category, and folder. It took maybe 3 minutes of silence for them to realize what they were looking at. One of the board members, a woman named Denise who I barely talked to, looked pale. My mom stood up. "This is slander. You're misinterpreting." I cut her off. "It's not slander. These are your emails, your instructions, your voice on recordings. If you want to deny it, go ahead. I'll let the auditors sort it out." Chris said nothing. For the first time in his life, he looked unsure. I turned to the board. "I've been here 12 years. I built your logistics model. I saved this company twice during crises. You all know who's been running the operations. I didn't ask for a title. I didn't ask for credit. But I won't be erased." Mark asked to pause the meeting. Said the board needed time to review. As people filed out, my mom came up to me. She didn't look angry. Just tired. "You think this makes you a leader?" she said quietly. I didn't answer. Chris walked past me, without looking up. He bumped my shoulder as he passed. He looked smaller somehow. That night, I got a text from Mark. "We need to talk. You may have just saved the company, or destroyed it." The next morning, I met Mark at a diner off the freeway, the kind where the coffee tastes like metal and the booths are too sticky. He'd already ordered black coffee, dry toast. He looked exhausted. We went through everything on the flash drive, he said, sliding a stack of printed documents across the table toward me. "You weren't bluffing." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He tapped a page with his index finger. "The wire transfer to her personal account. That's criminal, man." "And those NDAs? If those girls come forward, we're looking at a PR nightmare." I nodded. Then he said, "You ready for the fallout?" "What do you mean?" "She's not going down alone." He was right. My mom wasn't the type to take the blame quietly. And sure enough, that afternoon, an anonymous email went out to all senior staff, with a PDF attachment showing my name linked to past payroll irregularities. Ones I didn't even authorize. I got a call from payroll 2 hours later. They were confused. "Were you issuing discretionary bonuses to yourself under Department Code 49A? "No." But I recognized that code. It was one of the old billing tags we used when my mom wanted to bury expenses. She'd used my credentials. My login. She was trying to burn me down with her. "I responded fast." I forwarded old emails where she'd asked me to push payments through under 49A and use your admin access. I'll clean it up later. I also had a photo of a whiteboard she used during budget planning with my name written under a list of items I never touched. Damage control was messy. The board launched an internal audit. I was temporarily suspended, pending investigation, even though they knew I wasn't the root of it. Chris vanished. He didn't show up to work the rest of the week. Rumor was he was in Miami. I started getting texts from old staffers who had left the company. People I hadn't heard from in years. She did the same thing to me, one wrote. Used my login to fudge shipment dates. I quit when she tried to pin a customs issue on me. Another. I have emails too. Let me know if you want them. I compiled everything. Names, screenshots, dates. I sent it all to the audit committee in a file labeled collateral, Tier 2 witnesses. That's when things escalated. My mom filed a cease and desist against me through her lawyer. Claimed I was misappropriating proprietary data. But it was already too late. Denise, the quiet board member, called me the night before the next meeting. She's losing control, she said. But she's got someone backing her, a silent investor who holds 18%. He's threatening to pull out if she's removed. I had no idea there was a silent investor. That wasn't public knowledge. I'd been under the impression our ownership was split among 5 known shareholders. Now there was a 6th, hidden, and loyal to her. Which meant if I wanted to protect the company, not just for myself, but for the people who actually worked there, I had to figure out who he was. And what he was getting out of this. That's when I remembered a folder she'd once asked me to delete. 6 months ago. Don't worry about that old file. Just clear it out, she'd said. I hadn't deleted it. I'd archived it. Inside was a name, a contract, and a payment schedule that didn't make sense, unless you realized it wasn't about business. It was about keeping a secret. The silent investor's name was Mitchell Rhodes. He wasn't in logistics. He wasn't even in business. He was a lawyer, and not the kind you call for contract reviews. He specialized in settlements. Quiet ones. The kind with large payouts and sealed documents. I found his name in a folder labeled Colfax. Personal. At first I thought Colfax was a client, but when I dug deeper, I realized it was the name of a property. A small, out-of-the-way house owned by the company on paper, but paid for in personal checks. My mom had set it up as a secondary office, but nobody ever used it. Inside the contract folder, there was a clause. A payout of $125,000 labeled relocation assistance. A non-disclosure agreement attached. The signatory was someone I hadn't heard of before, Lauren Trent. I Googled her. She used to work for us. Briefly. 2016, admin assistant. There were no HR complaints under her name. No exit interview. Just a resignation notice that looked off. The font was different. The signature pixelated, like it had been lifted from somewhere else. I called an old HR manager who had left the company the year after Lauren did. She remembered her right away.
She disappeared, she said.
One day, she just didn't show up. I was told not to follow up. And then she added, "Your mom handled it." I checked the dates. Lauren left 2 weeks after a company retreat where Chris had been present and drunk, according to several reports from that trip. It clicked. Lauren hadn't quit. She'd been paid off. Silenced. And the house on Colfax? It was hers. Or rather, she'd been staying there, under the arrangement Mitchell Rhodes brokered. It wasn't just financial fraud anymore. This was a cover-up. I copied the files. Every document, every payment record, every legal email between my mom and Mitchell. Then I did the one thing I knew she wouldn't expect. I reached out to Lauren. Her LinkedIn was inactive. No Twitter. But she had an Etsy shop of all things. I placed an order. In the buyer notes, I wrote a simple sentence. If you ever want to talk about 2016, here's my number. She texted me 3 days later. One word. Yes. Lauren met me in a public library parking lot just before closing. She didn't ask why I wanted to meet. She already knew. She told me everything. And when she finished, I realized this wasn't just about me getting passed over for a promotion or my mom lying to me. This was about the kind of person she'd always been and how long I'd refused to see it. I thought walking away from the company would be the hard part. But it turns out the real grief came later, when I finally accepted that my mother had never been building something with me. She was just using me to cover what she was afraid to face on her own. And the worst part is, if she called me tomorrow and said she needed help, a small part of me would probably still show up.